Captain Zix Vero reclined in his command seat aboard the Void Serpent, his scaled digits tapping out a staccato rhythm on the armrest. His snake-like gaze swept over his crew, a notorious band of galactic marauders handpicked for their exceptional cruelty. "Give me an update," he demanded, his voice raspy, characteristic of his species, reverberating through the shadowy bridge lit mainly by the soft glow of holographic screens and the distant twinkle of celestial bodies outside the viewport. "All systems are running smoothly, Captain," responded First Mate Crush, her arms expertly navigating several interfaces. The light reflected off her crystalline shell, casting rainbow hues around the cabin. "We've plundered 3 ships this cycle. Our cargo bay is nearly 3/4 full." Zix's mouth twisted into a pleased grin as he acknowledged the update. The Void Serpent was infamous across the outer sectors for its ferocity, and their recent conquests only enhanced their fearsome reputation. "Display the hull log," he ordered, and a hologram flickered to life in front of him, listing the names of their recent spoils: the Starchaser, the Quantum Dream, the Nebula's Grace, each a testament to his crew's tactical superiority and brute strength. Behind him, Security Chief DRA chuckled deeply. "The captain of the Quantum Dream turned quite an interesting shade of green when you threatened to jettison his stock of rare funi," he remarked. Third Officer Y joined in, her many tentacles undulating with delight, and the crew of the Nebula's Grace, pleading for their lives over a few ancient seeds, was particularly amusing. Zix laughed shortly. "Those who collect rare items do seem to prize them more than their safety." He then shifted his attention to the stellar maps. "It's been a while since our last catch, about 6 hours. YIK, scan the nearby sectors. Let's stir up some excitement." "Scanning, Captain," replied Y, her appendages flitting over the controls. "Something's coming up. Sector 7, Quadrant 3. What have we found?" Zix leaned forward with keen interest. "A lone human freighter, lightly armed, seems to be off the standard shipping lanes, flying a civilian flag," Y reported, her tone laced with intrigue. A sly smile crept over Zix's lips, exposing his sharp fangs. "Humans, eh? We haven't yet had the joy of intercepting one of their ships. They're said to be quite the wild cards." Crash ventured cautiously. "There are rumors they can be quite unpredictable, just tales spun by the timid and those who've tasted defeat." Zix waved off the caution. "The more unpredictable, the better the sport." His body surged with vitality as he commanded, "Set a course to intercept. It's time we diversified our portfolio with some human spoils." The crew snapped into action, each member proficient in their assigned roles, as the Void Serpent's engines purred, propelling the menacing ship towards its next target. DRA smiled, his weapon systems primed with confidence. "We'll strip their ship bare, and if any of those humans show their faces, they'll regret it." Captain Zix Vero nodded, reassured by his crew's readiness. "Let's focus on the prize. Keep to the plan, and this will be another easy score for the Void Serpent." His eyes fixed on the hologram, watching the Star Wanderer draw closer. "Captain," Y interjected, her tentacles pausing as another scan completed. "The energy readings are peculiar. This might not be standard smuggling. Could be something rare." Zix raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Define rare." "Unknown," she admitted, "but significantly valuable if they're using this much power to shield it." The idea of a unique and high-value item hidden within the freighter piqued Zix's interest further. He leaned back in his command chair, a plan forming in his mind. "DRA, prepare your team for a thorough search. We're not just raiding, we're treasure hunting." The crew's energy shifted, anticipation filling the bridge as they moved into position. The Star Wanderer was now clearly visible on the main screen, its silhouette bathed in the cold light of distant stars. "Approaching target," announced the helmsman, stealth systems fully operational. Zix nodded, his focus narrowing. "Engage docking clamps upon arrival, and let's see what secrets this human freighter holds." As the Void Serpent maneuvered into docking position, the crew prepared for what they expected to be a routine and profitable raid. However, unbeknownst to them, the Star Wanderer was anything but an ordinary target, and the encounter would prove to be a defining moment for Captain Zix and his band of pirates. Each team advanced cautiously, their senses alert for any signs of the crew or traps. As they progressed, the ship's eerie silence became more palpable, a stark contrast to the expected clamor of a functioning freighter. "DRA, report." Zix's voice was steady, but there was an underlying edge of curiosity and concern. "We're approaching what appears to be the engineering section," DRA responded, his camera showing a series of locked doors that were far more fortified than any typical freighter would necessitate. "These doors, they're not standard. They're equipped with biometric locks. I've never seen this level on a civilian ship. Try to bypass them," Zix ordered. "Use any means necessary. I want to know what they're hiding." Back on the Void Serpent, Zix's confidence confidence began to wane as he considered the implications. A supposedly simple target outfitted like a high-security military vessel was not what they had expected. The thrill of the hunt was giving way to the stirrings of doubt. Meanwhile, Crash's team found their way to what should have been the cargo hold, only to discover it was a massive, empty chamber with strange, intricate patterns etched into the floor. "Captain, you should see this. It doesn't look like any cargo hold I've seen. It's more like a ritual chamber or something arcane." Zix furrowed his brow, puzzled. "A ritual chamber? Are you sure?" "Yes, Captain. There's nothing here that resembles storage capabilities. It's just this large, empty space with markings." At that moment, YS interrupted from the bridge. "Captain, I've analyzed the power fluctuations you mentioned earlier. They're not random. It looks like a bait setup. The energy signature suggests they might be powering some kind of high-yield defense system." Zix's scales bristled with irritation and intrigue. "A trap, then. They lured us in knowing we'd board." He paused, considering their next move. "Everyone, maintain extreme caution. We may be dealing with more than just smugglers." On the Star Wanderer, DRA's team managed to open the biometrically locked doors, revealing a state-of-the-art control room brimming with technology that was definitely not standard issue for a civilian vessel. Screens displayed star maps, defensive maneuvers, and weapon systems far more advanced than any on the Void Serpent. "DRA, what's your status?" Zix demanded, growing more anxious by the moment. "We found the control room, Captain. This isn't a freighter. It's a disguised military ship, possibly experimental. It's equipped with tech I've never seen, and it looks like it's set to trigger something big." Zix clenched his jaw. "Everyone pull back immediately. Return to the Void Serpent." But it was too late. As his order was broadcast, a sudden surge of energy pulsed from the Star Wanderer. Lights aboard the Void Serpent flickered as the shockwave hit, systems struggling under the unexpected load. "The humans were prepared for us," Zix realized grimly. "This was a setup from the start. They knew we couldn't resist the bait." As the Void Serpent's crew hastily retreated, the true nature of the Star Wanderer was revealed. It wasn't just carrying valuable cargo. It was a meticulously planned trap set by humans who had anticipated the greed and confidence of pirate hunters like them. The encounter was a humbling lesson for Zix and his crew. Underestimating their opponents, particularly humans, could lead to dire consequences. They escaped, but not without losses and a newfound wariness of human ingenuity and resolve. Forward to this meeting, Zix stared, his command facade slipping as the reality of their situation sank in. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice thick with confusion and anger. The woman's smile didn't waver. "This is the culmination of human ingenuity and strategy. We've been developing the Hunter-class autonomous defense system specifically to handle threats like yours. You're not the first to try and you won't be the last. But you are, perhaps, the most notorious so far." On the bridge, the crew of the Void Serpent listened intently, their earlier bravado replaced by growing dread. "Your crew is safe for now," the woman continued. "They're contained in a simulation designed to test their responses and our defenses. Consider it a valuable training exercise for both sides." Zix gritted his teeth. "Release my crew," he growled, struggling to maintain his composure. "In due time, Captain. First, let's discuss terms. Your ship, your operations, they've been a blight on trade routes for too long. Today that ends." Zix felt a chill run down his spine. This was no ordinary encounter. It was a well-orchestrated trap designed to capture or kill. "What do you want?" he asked, resigned to the fact that this human had outplayed him. The woman tapped on her datapad, then looked up. "Surrender your ship and your crew will be released unharmed. Refuse and, well, the Hunter-class defense system has not yet been tested to its full capacity. I'd rather not use your crew for that, but I will if necessary." Zix knew he had little choice. The lives of his crew were in his hands, and while piracy was his life, it was not worth the lives of his comrades. "Agreed," he said stiffly. "We will surrender." "Very wise, Captain Vero. Coordinates for your surrender will be transmitted. Follow them precisely. Non-compliance will have severe consequences." As the transmission ended, Zix slumped in his chair, defeated. Around him, the crew of the Void Serpent was silent, each member processing the sudden turn of events. First Mate Crush spoke up, her voice uncertain. "Captain, what now?" "We do as she says," Zix replied, his voice hollow. "We have no other options. Prepare for surrender." As the Void Serpent changed course, following the coordinates provided by the human defense system, Zix couldn't help but admire the cunning and resourcefulness of humans. They were indeed unpredictable, a trait that had just turned the tables on one of the most feared pirate captains in the galaxy. Back on the Star Wanderer, the human commander watched the Void Serpent's compliance with a nod of satisfaction. This encounter, like many before, would serve serve as a stark warning to others. Underestimate humanity at your peril. She leaned closer to the screen, her eyes twinkling with the challenge. Very well, Captain Vero. Let's see how long your ship holds out against the full capabilities of the Hunter. As Nash cut the communication, a tense silence fell over the bridge of the Void Serpent. Zix turned to his crew, his expression grim but determined. All hands, prepare for defensive maneuvers. Engage all countermeasures. We're not going down without a fight. The crew sprang into action, their previous despondence replaced by a flurry of activity as they prepared the ship for what might be their last stand. Meanwhile, the metallic cloud emitted by the Hunter began to interact with the Void Serpent's hull, tiny nanites infiltrating and attempting to rewrite its systems. First Mate Crescent turned to Zix, her voice tinged with urgency. Captain, the nanites are bypassing our firewall. They're incredibly sophisticated. None of our standard protocols are stopping them. Zix clenched his fists, his scales flushing a darker shade as the reality of their situation set in. Focus on manual overrides. Keep them out of the core for as long as possible. And get me a direct line to that human captain. If we're going down, I want her to know exactly who she's dealing with. Back on the Hunter, Captain Nash monitored the progress of the containment nanites with clinical precision. She turned to her first officer, a slight smile playing on her lips. Prepare the boarding party. Looks like the Void Serpent's captain isn't as ready to give up as he claimed. Her first officer nodded, the excitement of the imminent confrontation evident in his eyes. Should we expect heavy resistance? Most likely, Nash replied, her gaze never leaving the monitors displaying the Void Serpent's faltering defenses. But remember, the goal is capture, not destruction. We need them alive, Captain Vero especially. He's a valuable asset for the intelligence he can provide. As the final barriers within the Void Serpent system began to fail under the relentless assault of the nanites, Zix realized that their options were dwindling rapidly. He issued a final command to his crew, his voice resolute despite the dire circumstances. Prepare to repel boarders. We'll show them what it means to take on the Void Serpent. Remember, we are the terrors of the Outer Rim for a reason. The crew rallied around their captain, ready to defend their ship with everything they had. As the Hunter's boarding pods launched towards the beleaguered pirate vessel, a fierce determination took hold of every pirate aboard. The confrontation was set, and though the odds were heavily stacked against them, Captain Zix Vero and his crew were prepared to make their stand, proving that the spirit of the Void Serpent was not so easily broken. As the gravity normalized slightly, Zix straightened in his reconfigured chair, the unsettling beauty of his ship's new interior stark against the cold reality of their situation. Discuss the terms then, he said, his voice betraying a trace of defeat mixed with reluctant curiosity. Captain Nash nodded, her demeanor businesslike as she outlined the arrangement. Firstly, you and your crew will be granted immunity for all past crimes, piracy, raiding, smuggling, as long as you agree to work under the direct supervision of the United Space Authority. You'll assist in apprehending other pirate fleets, utilizing your skills and knowledge of the Outer Rim's less savory routes and hideouts. Zix listened, his mind racing to weigh the benefits against the loss of freedom. And the crew, he asked, what of their choice in this matter? Each member will be given the same options as you. Those who agree to join will undergo a brief retraining period to ensure compliance and understanding of their new roles. Those who refuse will be detained and tried for their crimes. It's a fair offer, Captain, considering the alternatives. Around him, his crew exchanged uncertain glances. The allure of amnesty was tempting, especially juxtaposed with the discomfort they'd just experienced and the threat of more innovative punishments. And if I agree, what becomes of the Void Serpent? Zix inquired, gesturing to the altered environment around them. The Void Serpent will be retrofitted and rechristened. She'll serve as your command ship under our flag, equipped with the latest in human and Proxian technology, including a more cooperative version of the nanite system. Nash's grin suggested she enjoyed the poetic justice of the ship's transformation. Zix's mind spun with the ramifications. Working for those they once preyed upon was a bitter pill to swallow, yet the alternative was far worse. Turning to his crew, he saw resignation in their eyes, mirroring his own. Very well, he finally conceded. We accept your terms, Captain Nash. Excellent decision, Nash replied, her tone satisfied but not gloating. You'll find that our resources are considerable. You and your crew will undergo a debrief and integration process starting immediately. Welcome aboard, Captain Vero. As the transmission ended, the gravity stabilized completely, and the bridge solidified into its new configuration. Zix stood, feeling the weight of his decision. He faced his crew, their once formidable presence now subdued under the weight of their new reality. We are no longer pirates, Pirates, he announced, his voice carrying a mix of resignation and defiance. But let us be the best damn hunters this galaxy has ever seen. For our survival and perhaps one day for our redemption. Nods of agreement met his statement, the crew's resolve hardening with the promise of a fresh start, albeit under the watchful eyes of their former adversaries. As the Void Serpent set a course for their new homeport, Captain Zix Vero pondered the ironies of fate that had led him here, a pirate turned protector, guided by the very technology that had subdued him. It was a new chapter, fraught with challenges, but also filled with potential for something he hadn't expected, perhaps a chance at genuine change. Zix clenched his jaw, frustration mounting as each of their desperate maneuvers turned into advantages for their pursuer. The Void Serpent shuddered, vibrations running through its frame as it strained to reach the safety of the asteroid field. Captain, we're entering the asteroid field now, Pell announced, his voice tense but hopeful. The ship dodged between massive rocks, the asteroids providing some cover from the hunter's relentless pursuit. Keep us moving and stay unpredictable, Zix instructed, his eyes locked on the view screen where the hunter was adapting its form once more, its surface shifting like water as it navigated the asteroid field with disturbing ease. Cress, working frantically at her station, managed to reroute enough power to keep their engines at full capacity, though the life support systems were now operating at minimal levels. Oxygen levels are dropping, Captain, she warned, her voice strained under the weight of her tasks. Maintain course, Zix replied, his voice firm. Our lives depend on making it through here. As they wove through the asteroid field, the hunters' adapted nanites began to falter, their movements becoming less coordinated as they encountered the natural electromagnetic interference from the asteroid's mineral compositions. Looks like they're having trouble with the asteroids, Zix observed, a note of triumph in his voice. Keep it up, Pell. Take us deeper. Pell nodded, concentrating on his navigation screens, plotting a path that used larger asteroids for cover and the densest areas to disrupt the hunter's sensors. Suddenly, a large asteroid loomed directly in their path. Evasive maneuvers, Zix barked. The ship tilted sharply, the gravitational anomalies within the asteroid field tugging at it unpredictably. The crew braced themselves as the Void Serpent narrowly avoided a collision, the ship's hull scraping against a smaller rock, sending sparks flying. Damage to starboard wing, Cress reported, checking her systems. Hull integrity compromised but holding. We can't take many more hits like that, Zix muttered, glancing at the damage reports flooding his display. Just then, the hunter's pursuit seemed to slow. Nash's face appeared on the view screen once more, her expression one of mild annoyance mixed with respect. Captain Vero, I must admit this chase has been more entertaining than expected. However, it's clear you're not going to surrender easily. Zix smirked, not willing to give her the satisfaction of seeing him worried. You got that right, Captain Nash. We're not done yet. Nash nodded, her smile returning. Very well. Consider this a professional courtesy. Then, we'll pull back for now, but don't think this is over. We'll be watching. As her image faded, the metallic cloud began to retreat, the nanites dispersing as the hunter pulled out of the asteroid field. Zix let out a long breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. All right, everyone, let's take stock and repair what we can. This is far from over, but today, we've earned a reprieve. The crew set to work, assessing the damage and making repairs, their spirits lifted by the small victory, even as the reality of their situation weighed heavily on them. They were still outlaws on the run, but for now, they had survived, and in the void of space, each moment alive was a victory in itself. Zix nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of his new reality. His pride battled with pragmatism, knowing well that Nash's offer was the best outcome he and his crew could hope for under the circumstances. The life of a pirate had been thrilling, but it was also brutal and often short-lived. Nash's proposal offered a chance at longevity and perhaps redemption for past misdeeds. I suppose I don't have much choice, Zix admitted, glancing around at the high-tech surroundings that were now to become his new operational base. But what guarantees do I have that my crew will be treated fairly under your command? Nash set down her datapad and met his gaze directly. You have my word, Captain Vero. Your crew will be trained and treated as any member of the United Earth Navy. They will have opportunities for advancement, and their past will not be held against them as long as they adhere to our codes. And if I agree to this, what happens next? Zix asked, trying to piece together his future in this unexpected alliance. We'll start with integration training for you and your crew. You'll learn about our operations, the legal framework we operate within, and the technologies we use. Once training is complete, you'll be given command of a reconditioned ship. Yes, the Void Serpent, though she'll be somewhat different from what you're used to. Zix raised an eyebrow, a faint smirk playing at his lips despite the situation. Reconditioned, huh? I assume you'll remove all the pirate-friendly modifications. Exactly, Naturally, Nash smiled back. She'll be equipped with the latest UN tech. Weapons, shields, and, yes, even nanite systems, though strictly regulated. You'll find she's more powerful than before, but also more responsible. Zix considered this, his mind racing through the possibilities. Working for the United Earth Navy was a far cry from his days as a pirate lord, but it also presented new challenges and opportunities. Perhaps, in this new role, he could steer his crew towards a more honorable path. "All right, Captain Nash," Zix finally said, extending his hand in agreement. "We'll accept your terms. Let's see what kind of difference we can make together." Nash shook his hand firmly, her expression approving. "Welcome aboard, Captain Vero. I look forward to seeing how you apply your considerable talents for the greater good." As Nash led him out of the briefing room to begin his new life, Zix felt a mix of apprehension and excitement. The pirate captain was gone, replaced by a commander in the United Earth Navy. It was a role he never envisioned for himself, but one he was determined to embrace. For Zix and his crew, a new chapter was beginning, marked not by the plunder of the void, but by the protection of the cosmos under the banner of human ingenuity and cooperation. Nash nodded approvingly, her eyes alight with a strategic fire that Zix now recognized as a hallmark of human command. "Very well, let's get to the bridge. You'll find that commanding a Hunter-class vessel involves a bit more flexibility than your previous endeavors." As they walked through the sleek corridors of the Hunter, Zix observed the crew, humans and several other species, all working in seamless integration. The dynamic was different from anything he had experienced on the Void Serpent. Here, every individual seemed to operate with a shared sense of purpose and innovation, attributes that Nash had turned into the ship's, and by extension, the program's greatest strengths. Upon reaching the bridge, Zix was struck by the array of holographic displays and adaptable interfaces that replaced the traditional fixed stations he was accustomed to. The command center was alive with activity, responding dynamically to the crew's interactions. Nash led him to a station with a view of the forward sensors. "Here," she said, pointing to the display which now showed the pirate vessel they were tracking. "This ship thinks it's running a standard smuggling route, but we've laid a trap similar to the one you encountered. Watch how the crew reacts when they realize they're not in control of their situation." Zix watched as the Hunter's nanites, disguised as debris, began to coalesce around the unsuspecting pirate ship, gradually overtaking its systems. The process was smooth, almost elegant in its execution, a far cry from the brute force tactics of traditional pirate hunting. "It's about manipulation, not confrontation," Nash explained. "We manipulate the environment, the circumstances, and even the perceptions of our targets. The galaxy is a chessboard, and every piece has potential. It's not enough to dominate. The true art is in reshaping the pieces to suit your strategy." The operation unfolded flawlessly. Within minutes, the pirate ship was secured, and its crew was being processed much like Zix's had been. The efficiency and non-violent nature of the capture were unlike any pirate takedown Zix had ever led or witnessed. As the operation concluded, Nash turned to Zix. "Each mission teaches us something new about our adversaries and ourselves. The galaxy isn't just a battleground, it's a testing ground for ideas. What we learn from pirates today will help us tackle even more significant challenges tomorrow." Zix felt a growing respect not just for Nash but for the entire human approach to galactic engagement. It was a perspective that transformed threats into opportunities and enemies into allies, a perspective that he now realized had more power than the mightiest of fleets. "I think I'm going to like it here," Zix mused aloud, more to himself than to Nash. Nash smiled, clapping him on the shoulder. "I thought you might. Welcome aboard, Captain Vero. Let's go turn some pirates into protectors." As they walked back to the command center, Zix knew he had much to learn about his new role and even more to understand about his new allies. But one thing was clear: underestimating humans was a mistake he wouldn't make again. Their creativity and resilience had not just captured him and his crew but had earned his respect and, potentially, his loyalty. Together, they would redefine what it meant to be a force in the galaxy, not through conquest, but through the sheer force of innovation and transformation. The universe was vast, and for the first time in a long time, Zix was excited to see what lay beyond the next star.